My name is Negin Singh. Thank you guys so much for being here. Today's talk is really going to be about my life and my life story up until this point. So if you came here for charts and graphs, enjoy your donuts. But I really wanted to talk a little bit about the internal game that I believe each of us hold within ourselves and kind of ends up propelling us forward. So thanks for being here, and thank you, Lindsay, and Philosophy, and all of you incredibly smart people who wake up early to learn. That's really awesome. So let's go over here. We're going to start with my dad. The gentleman with the very stylish Adidas shirt and turban is my dad. He was born in India into a Sikh family. My dad wore a turban all of my life up until 9/11, where people stopped doing business with him afterwards, and so he cut his hair and his beard, and that was strange. But until then, he was this incredibly charming man who spoke 5 languages fluently and probably 100 languages, enough to charm you at a dinner table. That's just who he was. One of the languages he spoke was Farsi, and he, if you can imagine a 6'2" man with a turban and beard speaking fluent Farsi in Iran while doing business, he was really well known for that kind of swagger that he had. And people would nickname him Maharaja because of it. So, bars high. He came from a business family. That side of my family is all about business. They didn't really care what they were selling, they were about the sale. Whether it was rice or plastics or clothes, it was just about creating wealth for the entire family. My family is incredibly traditional in India. They all live together in a 3-story house with 12 bedrooms, and they still do. So we'll talk a little bit about that later. This is my mom. Isn't she pretty? My mom, where my dad was street smart. My dad, if you asked him where he went to college, he would mumble, Delhi University College, mumble. I don't think he actually went. My mom was the opposite. My mom was book smarts. If there was a scholarship to be had at any age, my mom got that scholarship. She was the top of her class. Piano was her thing. She was an artist whose artwork became a postage stamp in Tehran. And she had really, really giant dreams of becoming so many things. And unfortunately for her, she was stuck in Iran during the time of the revolution. Are there any Persians in the house? What's up, Salah? My mom was a revolutionary against the Islamic Revolution, and one of the things that she did was pass literature out. And I'm not talking about propaganda. She literally, at a time where books were no longer allowed from the West, she was out there handing out books about Jean-Paul Sartre and stories that she thought were important. And she was jailed many times. Many of her friends didn't make it. And she remembers, I was doing a play later on in life, a Jean-Paul Sartre play. And she came and she was crying, and the show was not that good. So I was like, what's going on? And she said that she remembered when the police were coming to raid where their books were, and they couldn't burn them because then they'd know where smoke was coming from. So she remembers the Jean-Paul Sartre book and washing it down in the sink. And just how much knowledge was important to her, and that feeling really affected her. So she left Iran as a refugee. The day she left Iran, there was a photo of her in the newspaper with an X on it, literally saying, "Find her, kill her." And she ran away to India. And the only person she knew in India was my father, who she had met one time. He was doing business with her boss. They had a charming lunch where my dad talked about a crush he had on some woman that he couldn't marry because of some arranged marriage that he was arranged for. And she had his card, and she called him up, and that's how my mother ended up being a refugee in my dad's house in India that still lives. This is them. They're way too cool, this photo, I love it. They, in true Bollywood fashion, fell in love. Ran away from India, of course, because how could this love be? And they ran away to Germany, where they got married, and then they came to America. Both of my parents came from pretty well-established families, but moving to America, they didn't know anybody. And though they had the support of their families back home, they had just ran away from both of them and done something that nobody was really doing in the early 80s. There weren't a lot of Persian Indian folk. So they came to America, they moved to Chicago because, I don't know, they picked it. And they had to innovate. And this is where they really became a team. My parents had this innate ability of going somewhere, eating something, seeing something, touching something, then asking questions about that thing. And this is a game that they would play, where they realized pretty early on, all you have to do is ask someone what they do and how they make it. People are down to talk about what they make. So they would eat something and they'd go, how is this made? How much does this cost? Is this going well for you? What's the best thing on your menu? And people would want to talk, and they want to talk, and they want to talk. And this is something they instilled in me early on, is never make somebody's job sound easy, always make it sound interesting, because it is, and it's interesting to them. So because of this, my parents, who had no training in pretty much any of these things, they opened the first Persian Indian restaurant in Chicago. It was a huge success. I think it's probably the only Persian Indian restaurant that Chicago's ever had. But they did all sorts of other stuff too. They loved Miss America in this new America that they lived in, and they would watch it, every year, and every Miss Universe, Miss America, whatever. And so they started the first Persian beauty pageant, and that was a huge success. And they just would build these things and tear them down, and build these things and tear them down. And they did this as a team. This is me, my brother. He's adorable. I'm cuter. We were then raised, so a lot of Middle Eastern and Indian parents, they have this ethos where you give everything to your kids. You give them everything. And most they expect a return on that in the form of becoming a doctor, a lawyer, and an engineer. Anybody have that pressure in there? You can talk about this and sort of talk bad about that pressure, but the real reason being is because these parents really pour everything into you. There are a lot of the times my parents didn't have a retirement plan. They didn't save. It was all about us. Anything that we wanted, they put towards us. And that's the case with a lot of my friends' parents were around, and being a doctor, lawyer, and engineer just sort of means there's a direct return on that investment. They just expect the kid to then take care of them. That's the retirement plan. Well, we didn't have those pressures growing up. My parents had a very different philosophy that sort of led to the same thing. They said, be whatever you want, but you have two rules. Because you're choosing what you want to do, you can't complain. You cannot complain because you chose what it is you want to do. And number two, if you're going to do something, it has to be amazing and it has to be bigger than yourself. So anything you learn, you have to make it big. They innately instilled this confidence in us at a very young age, where there was really no reason that whatever we were going to do, we couldn't win at. That doesn't mean we won all the time. There's just no reason why we didn't. So that was a really interesting thing. I want to be Miss California. So this is a photo of me as Miss California. And the funny thing about this, I was the only brown kid in the competition, not in like a cupcake uniform. And I went down and I very seriously namaste all of the judges. And when they called the name of the person who won, my parents couldn't find me. It was me. But because I was already on stage, I had assumed that I had won. I was like, obviously. So I was a real delight to be around as a child. But that's what they wanted. They absolutely wanted me to have that confidence. They knew what the world could throw at me, and they wanted me and my brother to believe that there was really nothing we couldn't do, and that expectation was set. When I succeeded at something, it wasn't like they threw this giant party for me and told me how wonderful I was. It was, of course you did. Of course you did. What do you mean? We drove you to the thing. You had the great outfit. Yeah, we told you what to do. You figured it out. What do you mean? Of course you did. My dad famously at my high school graduation party, my mom gave this amazing, wonderful speech about education and all that stuff. And my dad got up and went, in my country, it's not a big deal. If you graduate high school, that's what you're supposed to do. But I guess it is here, so I So I spent the first 20 years of my life completely caught in the art mode. I loved performance. I didn't know if I wanted to be an actress or any of that, but I just knew that this world of rehearsals and people getting together and making something that was, again, bigger than themselves, and these temporary magic structures where we would build something and tear it down, build something and tear it down. It looked a lot like the game that my parents had set up in life, and I loved it. And all throughout that time, my parents never made me feel less than for wanting to do something that felt, that could be thought of as art. And it wasn't like they were relying on my brother, he's a stand-up comedian. So, I decided to go to UC Irvine to get a degree in theater. And again, my dad drove from Irvine to Los Angeles every single day for work. Never once went, oh God, you're gonna do theater? I'm gonna pay for theater. You don't have to get a loan and you're gonna go for theater. He never made me feel that way. But that pressure, you better make something out of this. You better do something with this, was always there. So in college, I started my first company called Cartel Collaborative Arts LA. Actually, at the time, it was called the Ahimsa Collective, and nobody could say it, so we changed it. And the concept of the company was born out of not wanting to wait till next semester for the thing that I wanted to make to happen. Not waiting to see if we were cast in something to do the thing. So we got a group of people together and wanted to make relevant art fast. We did stuff like the living room tour, where we wrote a new play and we toured it around living rooms, dorm rooms, and mansions alike across Southern California. And this was the first time of me going, I have an idea, I want to do something, let's make it, and let's make it now. And I remember calling my dad and saying, I did this, and him saying, great, what's next? Moved to Los Angeles and realized that theater is really hard to get people to come out to, especially if you call it theater. So we wanted to have a bigger impact. So we started doing art parties. And the art parties would go, we would ask a question of a dozen or so artists and have them reflect the answer through art. The top one here is from Galaxy, where we asked artists to create their version of an plant and people would walk around and enjoy. The bottom is create your fort, an adult fort. And these were the first events where I saw 500 people, 1,000 people, 1,500 people show up. And again, called my dad, this happened, great, what's next? I wanted to travel. I wanted to show that I didn't have to be in Los Angeles to be an artist. Like my parents who sponged things up and made it their own, I took a clowning class in college, thought it was awesome, saw that nobody was teaching clowning in Los Angeles, and out of nowhere, I trained 500 clowns across the country and had shows running in New York and LA. And I was 24, and I just thought, this is so cool! It was a really great way for me to connect. It was also a really great way for me to learn the power of silence, because these clowns did not speak, and how I can communicate with folks through eye contact, through gesture, and through an unwritten language. So, great, what's next? Those were all in the theater world. And again, even though we were broadening ourselves into experiences, we were still speaking to an art audience. And I was bored of that. I wanted to talk to people who had no interest in art and liked just having a beer on an afternoon, like trickle with art. So I went into music. And I started throwing these one-off shows. And we'd have like 200, 300 people show up. And one show we accidentally booked on Coachella weekend, and we were going to cancel, and instead we went, all the bands that we booked aren't going to Coachella, we're not going to Coachella. What if we called it Broachella, and anybody who's too broke to go to Coachella, show up? Didn't think anything of it. 7 o'clock that night, we had 500 people standing in line. We had absolutely no branding, nothing. The biggest deal was that the grilled cheese truck was there. And we got shut down because it got too crazy. It was at the airliner, so we got shut down for like 2 hours. And that's where I really learned, we have something. We grew this concept over the last 8 years. The last one was just last weekend, from 500 people to at its peak 7,000 people. And my dad loves Broachella. We changed it from Broachella to Broke LA because guess what? You can't just call something Broachella and Golden Voice be okay with it. But my dad would come to these events, and this is where he saw business happen. He liked the art, that's great. But he saw transactions. He saw tickets being sold. He saw beer being sold, and wine, and swag, and fans for the first time. And he was so into this. And on years where it went great, he said, great, what's next? And on years that it didn't, he goes, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. He really believed in this concept. I then went on to become the festival producer of the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles. This was the first time I worked with money that wasn't mine. And it was a really scary thought at first. We were on the phone with the artistic director, and she said, what's the biggest budget you've ever worked with? And at the time I was like, $10,000, thinking that was a really big number. And she was like, well, this is more. And it was like $150,000. And I wasn't really fazed. I went, well, I know how to do that thing, and I can do this thing. And that's exactly how my parents had taught me. You just scale. It's how hard could it possibly be? If you care about something enough, if you believe in it enough, and if you're careful enough, you can do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? And it was also the very first time that I saw other Indian kids and Persian kids and Middle Eastern kids take the similar path that I did, and sharing those stories with each other and going, what game are you playing? Okay, how does that work for you? What did your parents say? And to learn that really, again, I was in this unique spot where mine supported me from day one versus a lot of them supported them when they were at the festival versus the journey to that festival. That was a really important lesson for me. This is my husband. He's over here. He's really cute. But my husband also had the entrepreneurial bug, and like my parents, we started a restaurant called Corazon y Miel, which was somewhat felt like an overnight sensation because of a great Jonathan Gold review. And food is super important in my life, so again, thank you for the donuts. It was at the very last day of the Indian Film Festival where a friend of mine showed up, and she started talking to me about a company that she was starting with a friend of hers. This company was named Daiquiri. Anybody here know what Daiquiri is? Cool. Hey. Daiquiri was an augmented reality company. It was 2012. Nobody knew what that was. This is pre-Pokemon Go. This is pre-Snapchat facial feature recognition. Nobody knew what it was. She said, will you speak on behalf of art and technology? I said, yes. I had a flip phone and a computer that weighed as much as my car. But I said, yeah, of course I'll do that. And I spoke at a summit, and it was this moment where I felt so at home the way that I did in rehearsals, where it was a bunch of brilliant minds getting together, making something they had no idea what they were making. Technology felt a lot like that. It felt like a lot of people talking about something they're going to make together, and they have no idea what they're making. So a couple months later, I started throwing the events for Daiquiri and became head of their experiential. And I went from, in 3 years, throwing their events to placing the product at their events, then picking the products that we're going to place at the events and doing the strategy around that. And finally, I went into actually making the products and experiences themselves. And by the time I left, I was the director of inspiration. That's a real title. And I led 30 engineers and creatives around the world in creating cutting-edge augmented reality experiences that explained to anybody what augmented reality was. And one of the projects I'm most proud of is Crayola's Easy Animator, which at the time won a lot of awards, including Toy of the Year. So that was a really big moment. And what you're seeing here, by the way, is a highlight reel. You're not seeing the stuff that went wrong. You're not seeing when the restaurant closed. You're not seeing the 2 a.m. phone calls to my dad going, we messed up. That all happened. It's all there, and we can talk about that. What I learned from that, though, is as you play, I mean, everybody here has played a video game before. When you get to that game over, it never actually means game over. It means restart and learn from the thing that you just did. And that was the message. Every single time I would call my dad and say, this happened, he would say, what did you learn? Get up. There's no excuse. Why are you wallowing? Why are you depressed? You have everything. You live in the best part of the world. You have a microphone. Get up. That was so important to my dad. This idea that I could be depressed about a job was just completely foreign because they had ran away from war. What was I talking about? I had no excuse. So Daiquiri decided to pivot into industrial, and that was officially too far for me, outside of my comfort zone. And so I left and created the Cartel Agency, which was the agency arm of my arts organization. And a lot of people went, how could you leave a company that you have, this great standing at and a salary and benefits? And it just wasn't right. And again, it wouldn't be right to honor my parents by doing something that I was complaining about, which I was complaining about it a lot to anybody who could listen. So I did that for a year with Cartel, and it was amazing, and I went around the world and created these opportunities for myself, and I finally started to feel like, okay, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm calling my dad. I'm telling him that we're making money. He's excited about it. We're moving forward. We got a lot of stuff in the pipeline. On July 25th, 2017, we got a phone call, and my dad, while he was in India, passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. He was 62. It's been 8 months. And I don't know how many people here have lost a parent unexpectedly before, or even expectedly. The best way I can say it is that it all of a sudden felt like I had less skin. I just did. I was out there in the world, and all of these things that felt like easy risks, like I can just do that, and I can just jump in, felt really scary. And I didn't have that person to call. My game was completely off. It just wasn't even the game anymore. And if I couldn't close this loop, this game loop that I was in, where I would eventually pay for my dad to live, then what game was I playing? And I felt incredibly lost and didn't know how to motivate myself. I legitimately, everything broke down at that moment. A month later, I got an email, and it was from the Santa Monica Pier Corporation. And 3 months before that, I had sent an email with a resume attached to it to some email that I did not think anything of, and I didn't hear anything back, and that was it. And they sent me an email saying, hey, you have advanced to the top 25 of our candidates, and you're moving on. And I was really conflicted. I was like, this is amazing, but also, I don't know if I'm in this space. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he said, for the first time, try not to win. Just talk to them. Just talk to them and tell them what you want to do. Tell them what you're about. And if they like you, that's all that matters. So I kept going to interviews. It was a long process. I kept going to interviews, and every time I'd be like, well, that's the last time I'm talking to them. I just told them and I wouldn't. And finally, I was awarded the position in November. And I sat with it for a second, and I thought about, well, what's my game here? I know what I want to do, but what's my game? And I realized that for the very first time in my life, instead of trying to impress my dad, I could actually become him. And the opportunities that he was able to not just give to me. My dad was the type of person where anybody in this room could go up to and go, I have an idea, and he'd go, great, here's $1,000. He just wanted to see the start of it. It didn't matter about return, he never asked about that. He just figured, if we're all in the same boat, if we're all helping each other out, we're all gonna get somewhere. And all of a sudden, I was at the Pier, where there's 9 million people a year, and there's programming that's free and open to the public, and there's a team of people who are passionate about joy. And I had the opportunity to create a game for them and go, how can we be the absolute best that we can be? How can we create programming that inspires people? How can we create just a perfect day where somebody comes in and feels like I'm in the right place at the right time and I'm gonna keep going? And I had to relearn that game, and I had to set up these new structures. And I'm really proud of the work that we're starting to do over there. The Pier's been an amazing icon for the city and for the world. But now I get a chance to show what we can really do. So this is, hey, that's my office. I'm really excited about it. You guys should really come and join us. This was a hard day. I couldn't call my dad. I gotta admit, this was hard. But I got a lot of other phone calls from my father-in-law and family just telling me how proud they were, and that was a really big moment to be this first-generation brown woman handling an iconic American spot with my parents coming from where they were. Was really, really exciting, and I'm not ashamed to be proud of that. So what are we doing at the Pier? Because you guys should all come. It's awesome. This is the advertisement part, everybody. And by the way, everybody say hi. Rick Cole, the city manager, is here. Hey, Rick. Hi. It's really exciting. So what are we working on? So we have a ton of programming, again, all free and open to the public. I believe that the Santa Monica Pier can create programming that show the rest of the world the ideals of what it's like to be a Southern Californian. We believe in education, we believe in diversity, we believe in art, we believe in sustainability, and all of our programming is going to reflect that. We have Roga, which is free yoga in the mornings, 6 weeks in a row for 3 times a year, where people a lot of times have never tried yoga, and they're doing so at the end of a Pier for free with world-class instructors, and it's super exciting. We have the Twilight Concert Series, which I'm sure half of you have gone to, at least. We are reimagining the entire thing. How do we turn it from just a beach concert to an entire art walk all alongside the Pier? We're gonna have 3 stages that go along the Pier. We're working with each of the tenants to figure out how we can activate those spaces and show more art. The theme for this year's event is Local Meets Global, where we will invite artists from different parts of the world to come and speak to the artists that are from LA that also speak to that culture. There's gonna be every language, every type of experience you can think of in these Twilight Concert Series to make you feel like I'm at exactly the right place I need to be making art or making art in my own way. I'm really excited about that. We are kicking off the summer with Pier 360. That's in a few months, where we talk about ocean sports and the history of the pier being the Muscle Beach of the pier, and skate, starting really in Southern California, and our ties to the ocean. And that's going to be June 23rd and 24th, and I really hope you'll come and enjoy that with us. We'll be giving a lot of new opportunities. Seesaw is something that I've implemented, I'm so excited about, where we're going to be picking 6 different artists whose work really can't be explained in one sentence, and giving them an honorarium to create new weird work at the pier. We want the feeling to be, I came to the pier, I saw a thing, I can't tell you what it is, but it's amazing. And that's going to be happening this summer. We have this STEAM innovation where we work with kids to launch them into their new tech careers as 8-year-olds. That started as a Rube Goldberg competition, and it was awesome. But this next year, we're going to be working with robotics labs and different tech companies to come out and actually mentor these kids. And how can we make sure that no kid feels like, I can't do this? That they can come here and go, I have a perfect day, and I want to be a scientist, or anything else. We're proud of the aquarium that's a part of the pier. They service 15,000 kids in Los Angeles. And they do so for kids who have never been to the beach but were born here. That's exciting. I get to do that. I get to go to work and give these opportunities to folks and feed this game that was started 31 years ago with my parents, and before that with their parents. And I couldn't be, again, more proud of that opportunity. And I truly am looking around here, there are brilliant minds in this room. If there are ways that you think you can collaborate with us to bring us to the absolute best that we can be, I want to hear that. Our team wants to hear that. We have our marketing team here, we have our deputy here. We want to talk to you because we truly believe that this community, we have a platform to tell the stories of this community, and I really hope that you'll come and join us and join our game, our new game that we're doing. Here's some more pictures. Thank you all so much for coming and listening to what I have to say. Again, it means a lot to me to be here today. Thank you, Lindsay, and I really hope that you'll join us and that you will up your own game because of today's talk. So, thank you.